everyone, I'm so excited to be finishing Chapter 6 today. I am Miss Stanfield. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm one of the third grade teachers. So we are going to read Chapter 6, Lesson 4 today. So let me go ahead and pull that up. All right, Lesson 4, New Ideas. Throughout history, new ideas have changed people's lives. Some kinds of ideas involve making new things, such as cars. Others involve creating new ways to live. Both kinds of ideas can change the way people lead their lives. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, more people began to work to give all Americans equal rights. When people have equal rights, they have the same rights as others. Women wanted the right to vote. African Americans wanted their children to have the right to go to the same schools as white children. Workers wanted rules to keep them safe. Many Americans worked to turn these ideas into laws. Education and new inventions. In the early 1900s, many schools were segregated. White and African American students went to separate schools. Sometimes no schools were available for African American children. Some people thought this was wrong. They wanted all children to have equal educations. In 1904, Mary McLeod Bethune opened a school for African American girls in Florida. All right, let's go ahead and look at this picture. It says Mary McLeod Bethune helped African American girls get an education. So here she is. Next page. In 1954, the United States Supreme Court ruled that school segregation was against the law. Now, all children could have equal educations. In the 1900s, the lives of Americans changed in other ways too. One big change was caused by the invention of the first practical or useful light bulb. In 1879, Thomas Edison had invented a light bulb that was cheap and reliable. It provided light without needing to light a fire or a candle. It took years for electrical wires to be put in and power stations to be built. However, by the 1900s, factories and offices could stay open at night. People could walk safely on well-lit streets too. Today, inventions are still changing people's lives. Cameras and computers have changed the way people communicate, shop for goods, and gather information about the world. All right, so let's look at these pictures. So we have a camera from the early 1900s and a camera from 2010. So you can see how much that technology changed in 110 years. Next page. New machines for work. In 1831, Cyrus Hall McCormick, whose parents came from Scotland and Ireland, invented a machine that cut grain. It was called a reaper. Before, people cut crops by hand. The reaper made cutting grain faster and easier. Today, machines help farmers plant, plow, and harvest crops. They help farmers use more land and grow more crops. One of the most important inventions of the late 1800s was the automobile, or car. In 1903, Henry Ford opened a business that built and sold cars. At that time, most people could not afford a car. Ford wanted to build a car that everyone could afford. He looked for a way to save time and money making cars. He thought about each thing a worker had to know to build a car. This led him to invent the assembly line, or on an assembly line, each worker does only one part of a job. Ford's assembly line idea was used in factories around the world. Assembly lines helped make a car called the Model T. The Model T cost less than other cars. Now, millions of people could afford to buy cars. All right, let's look at the picture. So this is Henry T. rides his car, the Model T. So here's what the Model T looked like. All right, next page. New ideas in medicine. In the 1700s, a disease called smallpox killed millions of people. No one knew what caused it. There was no cure. Then, in 1796, Edward Jenner found a way to protect people from this terrible disease. He gave them a vaccine made from a very weak virus. A vaccine helps people's body fight off disease. Jenner's vaccine helped people fight off smallpox. Polio was another terrible disease. In the 1950s, a Jewish American doctor named Ch.6 used Jenner's idea to invent a vaccine against polio. Salk gave people a dead form of the polio virus. Salk's vaccine helped people's bodies learn how to fight off the polio virus. The vaccine saved the lives of many people. Louis Pasteur discovered that many diseases are caused by germs. Pasteur thought that people would not get sick if germs did not enter their bodies. In the 1860s, he invented a way to kill germs by heating foods and cooling them quickly. This process is called pasteurization. Today, most of the milk we drink is pasteurized. All right, so let's go back up to the picture. So here's Dr. Salk gives the polio vaccine to a child in 1954. So here's Dr. Salk. And then people today get many vaccines to help them stay healthy. So here's a doctor giving a girl a vaccine. All right, next page. New ideas in human rights. Before 1861, when the United States Civil War began, there were many enslaved African Americans in the South. One reason the Civil War was fought was that many people believed slavery was wrong. Before and after the war, activists worked to win freedom for enslaved people. An activist is someone who works hard to make a change happen. Frederick Douglass escaped from slavery in 1838. Although it was against the law for enslaved people to learn to read, Douglass learned how to read and write. He soon became famous for speaking out against slavery. Douglass also printed his own newspaper to spread the word that African Americans should be free. Another activist was Harriet Tubman. She escaped from slavery in 1849. For the next 10 years, she kept returning to the South to help enslaved people escape. By 1860, she had freed more than 300 slaves. She risked her own freedom and her life to help others escape from slavery. After the Civil War ended in 1865, enslaved African Americans were finally free. However, African Americans still did not have the same rights as others. It would take many years and the work of many activists to make this happen. In the 1950s and the 1960s, Martin Luther King Jr. became a leader in the fight for equal rights for African Americans. He wrote books and made many speeches. He led thousands of people in a march on Washington, D.C., where he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. All right, next page. Our last page. Many Americans have worked for equal rights. Some have used their power in government to make changes. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson helped pass a law that made it illegal to treat people differently in the workplace. The lives of many people changed as a result of all these activists' work. All right, so that is the end of Chapter 6, Lesson 4. So not only do you need to watch my video today, but you also need to take the short quiz that is only 4 questions. So make sure you take that quiz on Canvas and then make sure you hit submit, and then you're done with social studies for the week.